But that very same night, a boy came up to me and asked me what my last name was, even though I was still wearing a name tag that he very much could have read himself. I didn't know it then, but that conversation would change my life for the better. I've had the chance to watch that same doubtful boy, unsure of whether Columbia was the place for him, become an incredible young man who's dedicated himself to making sure that the Latinx community could also call Columbia home. Christian is dedicated to everything he does, whether it's dancing his heart out with sabor, as you just saw a few minutes ago, or mentoring to and reaching out to under-resourced students. He is truly passionate about helping others and helping them succeed and making sure that he can make their dreams a reality. Christian is also one of the most caring and selfless people that I have the pleasure of knowing. Our freshman year, he made sure to call his abuelita every single night, and he goes home often to spend time with his family on the weekends. There has not been a single time when I've needed Christian and have not been able to reach him. Thank you, Chris, for reminding me about how important it is to chill, especially at a school like this. And thank you for being such a huge inspiration and an even better friend. I wouldn't have made it through Columbia without you. Christian is the type of person to make you laugh when you're having a bad time, or when you're feeling sad, and make you laugh even harder when you're having a good time. I have no doubt in my mind that Christian is going to change the world, because in only 4 years, through his leadership, compassion, and genuinely good-spirited nature, he has already changed the lives of so many people here. And with that, please join me in welcoming our student speaker and one of my best friends, Christian Rivera.
Thank you so much, Denise, for that introduction. As friends, Denise and I have many memories from freshman year. But before I discuss my first year at college, I want to take it a bit further back. Many of you may not know this, but this isn't the first graduation I've been asked to speak at. In 1999, when I was 5 years old and a week away from graduating kindergarten, my teachers asked me to deliver a short speech. I remember getting nervous and telling them that I couldn't do it. When I got home later that day, I told my mother what had happened, and she was both disappointed and sad. Although she might not remember, I walked to the living room and cried a little bit. I hated seeing my mother sad, but even worse, I had let my nervousness get the best of me. Little chubby Christian Daniel Rivera vowed to never turn down a speech again, and clearly, I kept my word. As I have with many things at Columbia, putting the speech together was a struggle. I struggled to find a theme. Once I found the theme, I struggled to find the words. And once I had written down some words, I realized the speech was too short and I needed more words. Needless to say, the struggle was, the struggle is, and the struggle will always be real. But luckily, every time I had an idea, I found a new person to discuss it with. Every time I wrote a paragraph, I had a close friend to read it. And little by little, the topic of the speech became clear. There was only one thing I should be writing about: the ability to overcome any struggle faced when one has their community and their loved ones with them. To illustrate this thought, I had to come up with an example. And what better example than to talk about the thing I know best, me. Like many Latinx students, I do not come down from the heavens above with loads of cash or tons of property. I did not arrive to Columbia with a 2400 on my SAT or a legacy of family members who attended this Ivy League institution. In fact, my experience is the opposite. My mother's side of the family comes from El Salvador, and my father's from Puerto Rico. A few years after my father came to New York, his brother was wrongfully murdered by a group of guys looking to kill someone else. For the few years my mother worked, she did not sell for much money and eventually came to struggle with several problems of her own. If you listen closely to the people I just discussed, I solely mentioned my parents just now. But it's because for me, that's where my struggle started, with my parents. Just as they struggled when they came here, I inherited a struggle from them. For all of my life, my parents have been separated. My early childhood was filled with challenges that came from this very fact. I remember when my father had finally gained custody of me, I was asked to introduce myself to my new classmates in the 2nd grade. And I was confused as to whether my last name was Medgar or Rivera, my mother's last name or my father's last name. I remember asking my father for help in the 4th grade with math, and him joking around that I was smart enough to do it on my own. He didn't admit it to me at the time, but I came to realize later on that he didn't understand the homework. I remember when I and my 2 brothers, Anthony and Andre, were taken away from my mother's custody, and years later arriving to the hospital to learn that she was being checked into the psychiatric side for schizoaffective disorder. But despite these challenges, the people around me never lost sight of where I was heading or what I was capable of doing with my life. When I needed clothes, my tia Amelia always found ways to purchase new clothes for me. I still remember her buying me my first pair of Timbs. When I needed to move from boarding school to Brooklyn, I could always rely on my cousin Pito and my cousin Wood. Every semester they drove over to Lakeville for a hearty breakfast and a wonderful morning of packing my books and clothes. And for the record, I do want to say, I do have a cousin named Pito and another one Wood. I also have a cousin named Nino, and my family refers to me as Cabeza. Great nicknames run through the family. Anyways, when I needed to be given a boost of energy or motivation, I always looked to speak with any of my brothers, Hector, Edwin, Anthony, Andre, or any of my cousins, aka my business partners. Looking back on my experience, I must say, for my whole life, raising me has always been a community effort. And this is why I love being asked the question, who raised you? When it comes to answering this question, I cannot comfortably say my mother or my father, but I can confidently say my family raised me. And I love my parents, so let me proudly say that I cannot knock or forget the effort they've put into raising me. When I originally wrote this, I was going to mention that my dad couldn't make it, but this morning he surprised me at class day. Tonight he wasn't... Tonight he wasn't feeling well, but I know that he always supports me. Tonight he wasn't feeling well, so he couldn't make it to this ceremony, but I know that he always supports me in everything I do. Anytime I tell him a good piece of news, I come home a few days later to an avalanche of questions from my aunts and my grandma about the news I shared with him only. He loves to tell everyone about my college experience and what I'm doing with my life. Although my mother couldn't be here tonight because she is currently in the hospital, I know she tries her best to do what she thinks is right for me. For my 21st birthday, she surprised me with a bag of Wilson socks as a gift. At first, I felt bad thinking that I had just reached a huge milestone of an age, and all I received was socks. But little did I know, she observed that I was wearing the same socks every time I came to her house, so she wanted to help me out as much as possible. Friday night, I sat with her in the hospital instead of going to a subward party. She told me how proud she was of me. Saturday morning, my father called to tell me how happy he was of everything I've done, and that he was going to send my brothers and my stepmom in place of his own attendance. I must say, these 2 moments this past weekend have meant more to me than any school award I've received or any of the times that I've made Dean's List. I appreciate what all of my family has done for me, and I would always love them very much for their continuous support. So, I think you're getting the message by now. I will never step down from a challenge like little chubby Christian from earlier. Instead, I will resist and overcome any challenge I face because I have an incredible family and an incredible community to rely on. And as a soon-to-be graduate of the Columbia University, I'm happy to make another claim. Today, my family is bigger than ever. Just as my family at home, my family at Columbia has helped me succeed and value these incredibly 4 difficult years here. It all started with the Academic Success Program, ASP for short. Here, this was my first challenge at Columbia, but coincidentally, it was where I found my first set of Columbia family members. From Ashuman's calculus problems to the endless surveys we had to fill out, the work was stressful, and reading the Iliad did not help one bit. But I remember one night, all of the students decided to put their work aside and pull a prank on the RAs. Instead of checking in at 10:50 like we did each night, we decided to run around campus and hide from the RAs. I still remember running around with Anel, Naima, Julia Denise, Reina, and several others. On that night, during a stressful summer, each of us created a community with 49 others that we did not know 4 weeks earlier. At times, the challenges were more difficult to face. During the fall of my junior year, life for many of us on campus was hectic. We had been informed on the suicide of one of our fellow Columbia members, and we also learned about the verdicts reached in several police brutality cases, including that of Eric Gardner. There were several protests held and even a dying during the lighting ceremony. Many of us felt unhappy, angry, and furious at what we saw happening around us. But I remember on one of those nights, HSF had planned a dance weeks in advance. Instead of going through with the dance, I recall many HSF members deciding that it would be best to cancel the dance and meet in Casa Latina for a community conversation. Many people left the conversation feeling they had found a place to express themselves and be heard. Somewhere they could find comfort in the midst of all that was going on. Once again, by coming together, we were able to work our way through one of the most difficult times on campus. So, within the next 24 hours, there will be many tears and many goodbyes. Within the next 6 months, some of us will have jobs and some of us will continue looking for them. At some point within the next year, I am sure each of us will encounter a challenge. And when you do, please remember this, that you have a community filled with other individuals ready to help you overcome these challenges. Any challenge we face, embrace it. Because whether it's realizing we don't have enough money to afford the books we need, whether it's working 2 jobs to only buy 1 or 2 meals a day and still go hungry before bed, whether it's arriving here undocumented or consistently being referred to with the wrong pronoun, know that we have never backed down from a challenge and we won't start now. With each other, we can overcome anything we face. And just as I ended every single sub-board meeting for the last 4 years, I would like to end this speech by thanking you all for the amazing opportunity and reminding you que el grupo unido jamás será vencido.
You have any words, guys? Any words for that speech?
It was beautiful. Inspiring. It was beautiful.
Thank you, Christian, for those